Championships, losing eventually to Sylvia Hanneke in the final of the Avon Championships. That was a big surprise because everyone had written that off.
Including myself, Al. And I was actually commentating during the match, and I was just shocked. Here's a lifetime Chris Evert Lloyd over Goolagong. Chris has a commanding 24-13 record. On grass, Goolagong is leading at 5-4. Indoors, they've split 12 matches. On cement, it's Evert Lloyd all the way. And on clay, they've played 11 times. Chris has won 9 of those. Here's their clay court matches. 1972 in Indy. Again, it was Chris in Miami. In Rome and Cincinnati were the only two that Evonne Goolagong won, and she has not beaten Chris on clay since 1973. Hilton Head, it was Chris again in 1974, easily. Also easily at Amelia Island. At the U.S. Open, it was Chris again, and in Indianapolis as well. Indianapolis is the U.S. clay courts, we should mention.
So a long history between these two as Evonne Goolagong takes her warm-up strokes along with Chris Evert Lloyd. These two met in the quarterfinals of the Australian back in the fall of 1981, and when Evonne Goolagong looks back on that, she says it wasn't very pleasing to the eye. And right now she is unranked in the world on the WTA computer due to her extended layoff, and I guess if she wants to make a comeback, she's got to wait for the next computer to come out and see how she stacks up in there.
Well, I'm sure Evonne will be able to get a lot of wild cards as she got into this one, Al. Everyone wants Evonne to play in their event. And there's an interesting thing going on in the men's tennis right now with Bjorn Borg, who's been forced to qualify because he's not playing enough tournaments. You've got to play at least 10 tournaments in the men's calendar to get into the main events and to be ranked. And Borg has refused to play in 10. So he may have to qualify for the French Open, an event he's won 6 times, and Wimbledon as well, where he won 5 times.
I was reading an article about the 4 people that might have to face him in the first qualifying round. A number of interesting quotes about what their reactions might be. This surface here is clay, as Mary has been saying. Earlier this week, it was buried under 6 inches of water, and a lot of hard work by a lot of people cleared it off, and now it seems to be a surface that the players enjoy very much. It's called a fast dry clay surface, and it is very soft. It's been watered down prior to this match. It was baked under the hot Florida sun throughout the day, but what a day here in South Florida. Where were you, by the pool or watching the tennis?
I was by the pool, Al.
So what might you expect from this? What would be the expected result, and what would be the surprising result, and what would be the intermediate result?
I think the expected result, of course, is Chris Evert Lloyd. As we mentioned just before, Evonne has not beaten Chris on clay in a long, long time, not since 1973. Here we are.
Hi, Mom.
But I'd be surprised, Al, if Evonne could come back after such a long layoff and beat Chris Evert Lloyd. But I would not count her out of any event she'll ever play in. Just amazing. I was there in Wimbledon 1980 when Evonne pulled that one off, and it was just a pleasure. And she's very, very popular. Both these players are. They're both married to Englishmen, and so they're both so popular in Great Britain. It was a great win for Evonne.
Of course, this is practically a little commute for Chris Evert Lloyd to come here to this tournament. These are her stomping grounds, South Florida. She doesn't have to go very far. And of course, when you have an $80,000 pot of gold at the end of the rainbow in this tournament, it's not too hard to get your juices flowing to come out and show for this one. Again, this is an exclusive tournament. 4 of the top players. Chris Evert Lloyd is basically here because she's #1 and the winner at Wimbledon. Andrea Jaeger was the U.S. clay court winner, and also #4 on the WTA computer after Tracy Austin and Martina Navratilova both declined. Tracy due to injuries, Martina because of her heavy winter schedule. Jaeger was next, and Hanna Mandlikova, who was 5th. Hanna is nursing a severely bad back. She's finally coming back from that. Andrea Jaeger had a stress fracture of the pelvic bone. I'm still trying to find out what that is. And Evonne Goolagong was invited here, as Mary, you were saying earlier, a wild card. So basically the stage is set for the 4 teams to wind down. This is the second of the semifinals, and in a 4-player event, of course, there are no quarters and no qualifyings or anything like that. In the doubles final, you'll see after this Rosie Casals and Wendy Turnbull, along with Betty Stova, and we'll have another look at Evonne Goolagong.
And last night, Evonne Goolagong and Betty Stova played in their first doubles match, and it was some sort of patchy tennis there. They played Andrea Jaeger and Kathy Horvath, and it took a while for Evonne to find her range, but when she did, she got off some just beautiful shots. And at one point, she made this really clever angled drop shot volley cross-court winner. And she was so happy after it. She did a little jig on the court, and of course the fans went crazy. And afterwards, Evonne just said, "I was just so happy to be out there again."
She took time off, of course, to have 2 children, and now they travel around in sort of an entourage. They have 2 kids, her husband Roger, and a babysitter. And Evonne says they're all getting used to being on the road. Chris Evert Lloyd sporting a tan. She's been taking it easy over the past few months. There's a look at Kathy Rinaldi. Her birthday, I understand, Mary?
Just a couple of weeks ago. We celebrated that here tonight. The promoter, John Cork, gave Kathy a cake. There's also a nice fireworks display here.
It is a very pleasant evening, a cool breeze blowing off the lake, which is just behind the far grandstand. About 68 miles, 68 degrees. We are just 10 miles or so north of West Palm Beach, inland off the coast by about, I don't know, 4 or 5 miles or so, and surrounded by the lush greens of the PGA National Resort. And this is the Citizen Cup, the first time that it has been termed the Citizen Cup and the first time that it has been held in Florida. We're looking at someone who is just a couple $100,000 short of winning $4 million in her career, and Evonne Goolagong trying to reach the 1.5 million level. She's at 1.3. I guess her best year was when she was ranked #1, was 76. And finally, we're set to go. Evonne Goolagong serving to Chris Evert Lloyd, semifinal of the Citizen Cup. Second serve at love 15.
There's one part of Evonne Goolagong's game that people seem to mention as any kind of a bad shot. It's her second serve, and it is sort of a modest one for such a world-class player. You'll see that it's not often she draws a good length on it. Right on the line. What a shot. Evert Lloyd didn't even bother to chase it down, thinking it would go well long. And it just parks itself right in there.
We are outdoors. There are breezes. I don't think that it's anything much of a factor. You're right, those second serves just kind of plop right in there. There are a few of the things I read about Evonne Goolagong and her most recent performances, and people, of course, were comparing her to the old Evonne Goolagong, and they say the main difference is speed and lack of it.
Yeah, that should be interesting to watch. We should probably keep our eyes on that tonight. I haven't seen Evonne play in so long that I really don't know that that's true. I can't imagine that she's dropped any foot speed, though. Another shot just ticks the line. Evonne carving up some great points from the baseline. Her ad. Just talking about foot speed, Al. The same comment was made by a lot of people about Vitas Gerulaitis, saying that he's gotten slower as he's gotten older. I watched him at the Masters in January in New York, and boy, he was running around like a madman to me. I certainly didn't detect anything from him.
Well, of course, at that time, Vitas was coming back after a doldrums or so, as he put it, in his career. And, you know, maybe when your game just starts falling off for whatever reason, you slow down. It's got to be mental, a lot of it, too.
Evert Lloyd pulled off that shot. Her weight was sort of on her back foot on that one, so she drew the error. Once again, Evonne has a game point. Good forward advance by Evert Lloyd.
We are at deuce for the second time.
Nice movement Chris makes in here. As you see, she's still quite far back into the net, so she doesn't try to do too much with that first volley, but she drew Evonne off the court here, opened herself up for the point. That's wide.
Game point again for Goolagong. She's trying to hold serve and take the first game of the first set. Called out. And Evonne Goolagong holds serve, and indeed she does take the first game of the opening set in this second singles semifinal. Goolagong leading in the opening set, 1-0. She takes a breather. A little bit of a struggle there, but the end result is what she's probably concerned with. Chris Evert Lloyd, of course, had a very slow winter. She didn't appear very often on the tour. We saw her once in California. Mary asked her why she didn't take part in more events.
The reason I only played one tournament this winter was because I went with my husband to 8 tournaments. And, you know, I think it's hard for people to understand why I don't play 12 months a year, but I'm a married woman and I have other responsibilities, and one of those is really to be with John and try to support him when he's at his tournament. So I decided to take the first 3 months, maybe play 1 or 2 tournaments, and then play the rest 8 or 9 months of the year, and that's plenty for me.
Well, Mary, is it paying off for John? Is his game getting better?
I understand that John is playing a lot better recently. At one point, John Lloyd was ranked 30 in the world. He really had a good game, a good serve, a big forehand, and his confidence really waned for a bit, and he was dropping further and further down in the rankings. So you take another look at Lee Jackson. But lately, he's been winning matches, you know, those very important qualifying matches that you have to go through. And John Lloyd, as you were mentioning, was one of the players that really objected to Bjorn Borg having to qualify, because a lot of people don't even think of the qualifiers in this instance. They don't want to play Bjorn Borg.
Evonne Goolagong makes her way back onto the court. She'll be facing the serve of Chris Evert Lloyd. Nice to see Lee Jackson cleaning her glasses.
So we don't have to deal with her outrageous calls. Vintage Goolagong. Big blasting backhand cross court for the winner. Have a look here. Here's just part of that last point. Watch how Evonne is going to step into this and just give it a ride. Beautiful play. Back live.
Those are just the type of shots she's going to need, too.
Goolagong, you're saying?
Yes.
You think she has to hit big shots to beat Evert Lloyd?
Yes.
We'll watch. Late call, but a correct one. It was just wide of the mark. Evonne's taking another peek at it. 3 break points. Great try on a very nice point. Both these players using up the whole court. Here's just part of it. What a nice little touch here by Chris. Evonne slides it back, and here's where they start the angle game. Chris coming in shorter and shorter. This one Evonne could not get to. So it's 15-40. Second serve.
She used your theory of go for every ball you can.
Yes. Oh, what a shot. Out. You may not know this, Al, because you don't play too much tennis. That is a very difficult shot to pull off. Watch this.
Tell me
Here
why.
comes a shot, because Evonne, watch how she'll just almost back up here, and off her back foot, she'll just slide it by. What an angle she got from the baseline. Very difficult to get that kind of a dramatic angle.
2 games to love and a service break for Evonne Goolagong here in the opening set.
It's the first double fault of the match.
Now 30.
Nice move by Evonne. Great backhand stretch volley here. This is a difficult shot to hit. And for most people, Evert Lloyd's lob would have been too tough. But watch how she leaps for this, gets a good shot off, and finishes it with that. Back live, second serve.
Her placement so far has been quite amazing. Still 2 break points for Chris Evert Lloyd. On a humid, frizzy hair night in southern Florida. Chris Evert Lloyd takes the game, breaking the serve of Evonne Goolagong. And it is 2-1 in the opening set in favor of Evonne Goolagong. For our local affiliates, we'll pause now. You're watching Citizen Cup Tennis on the USA Cable Network. A great event comes your way from the historic Augusta National Golf Course in Augusta, Georgia. It's first and second round play of the prestigious Masters Golf Tournament. All the greats will be there. Watson, Nicklaus, Trevino vying for the coveted green jacket, emblematic of pro golfing supremacy. See live coverage of the Masters beginning at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, Thursday and Friday, right here on the USA Cable Network. Evonne Goolagong looking on. How do you think she feels after the first 3 games?
Oh, she had a loose game in that last one, Al, but perhaps, Evonne just has to do that, just get it out of her system. I think she wants to play very loose, relaxed tennis. And the shot that she missed, apart from the double fault, she went long on them, which means she's overhitting the ball. And if she were really nervous, I think she'd be underhitting it into the net.
We're live on the USA Cable Network from the PGA National Resort. Al Troutwig along with Mary Carrillo as Chris Evert Lloyd will step to the baseline and serve 1-2 in the opening set. In the other single semifinal, Andrea Jaeger prevailed quite easily over Hana Mandlikova. You'll see highlights of that match at the conclusion of this, prior to our coverage of the doubles final. Called out. You sense these two have played each other before, and they know what it takes to beat the other.
37 times they've played. Evonne's won 13 of them.
That was good. Right on the line. Talk about placement, Mary.
This is a perfect service return.
Called out. Still 2 break points for Evonne Goolagong at 30 years old, trying to make it back.
that Evonne Goolagong was able to execute that shot because she'd already fallen away and slipped a bit. Have a look here. Somehow she's able to maintain her center of gravity and her balance. See that? Even on the slip, she comes up with a winning shot. Just a terrific athlete. 3-1 now. Opening set for Evonne Goolagong. Nice play by Evert Lloyd. Really jumped on that short ball by Evonne. Have a look. Chris must have read this very early, this shot, because she responded immediately. Watch her take that early ball. Doesn't even finish rising, and she's all over it. Good anticipation.
I feel that there's an unspoken conversation going on out there saying, oh, yeah? Okay, yeah, take this. Just out. Goolagong serving 3-1 first set. Finals tomorrow, 3:30 Eastern, right here on USA.
Interesting how Evonne Goolagong is winning her share of baseline rallies against Evert Lloyd. Chris is really being tested here on this clay.
Wide.
There are 8 Everts in the stands tonight watching Chris play. She doesn't live too far away, so she's got her mom out here, her sister Claire. Got a whole squad.
Now, how did she get all those tickets?
She asked me for them. She's well connected.
At least she knew where to go.
Break point for Chris.
Chris Evert Lloyd takes the game, or backs into it, whichever you might prefer. And games are 3-2 in favor of Evonne Goolagong here in the opening set. We're in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, for the first ever Citizen Cup. We'll return right after this.
You've got a Pepsi generation way of tasting life. I can see it in your style. Your look, your laugh, your smile. Come on, come on, come on, come on. You're the Pepsi generation, sharing one great taste for life. Pepsi's got your taste for life.
very one. We're gonna make some noise about the Levi's tab on these corduroys. They're cords, Levi's cords. In colors to give you inspiration. Cords of the style and imagination. Any place or any time. Those Levi's cords look mighty fine. They're cords, Levi's cords. Levi's cords. Levi's cords.
You're tuned to the #1 network for professional tennis, USA. Al Trautwig along with Mary Carrillo in a semifinal of the Citizen Cup, a $200,000 tournament on the singles side for 4 elite players: Chris Evert Lloyd, Evonne Goolagong, Hana Mandlikova, and Andrea Jaeger. This is the 3rd year, actually, of this type event. It is a WTA-sanctioned event. It was formerly called the Clairol Crown, and it was played in California. The previous winners were Tracy Austin and Chris Evert Lloyd. Chris is trying to do it again.
Difficult shot for Chris to play. She ran back well for it, but it hit the line, so it got a little skid on her. Evonne's really been connecting on those lines. I don't know if she's aiming for them, but she sure seems to be hitting them tonight.
We're coming to you from the PGA National Resort, and I guess if a poll was taken of golfers around the country, asked where they might want to be buried, they'd probably say, well, you could put me in the PGA National.
Oh, there's that shot again, Al. Again, from the baseline, Evonne just slides his shot over. Have another look at this. I think Evonne can actually come up with better angles on her backhand side than her forehand side. Look how she opens up the face of the racket to achieve that shot. Back line. That one's wide.
She's certainly trying to use the entire court, including a little bit of the lines.
It's so refreshing to watch Evonne play because I'm used to watching all these young players that just pound it out from the baseline. And Evonne still, like John McEnroe, has a very playful attitude about the ball and what she can do with it.
Up, 30-40.
This is Evonne's first singles match of the year. She said it's unfortunate that I have to play someone the caliber of Chris Evert Lloyd, but then again, I don't have very much to lose. She's #1. Evonne Goolagong takes another game in this opening set.
And now, as much as we talk about what Evonne can do to a ball, Evert Lloyd does the same thing, and you may not notice it from Chris as much because we've grown to expect so much from Chris in her game. But she also goes for a lot more shots than most players. She's got great touch, and she does much more out there than you might think. She's got to do a little bit more right now, down 4-2.
I have to be honest, there were a lot of people walking around here thinking this match was going to breeze along in favor of Chris Evert Lloyd, and it's breezing right along when it's breezing the other way.
from Evert Lloyd. And Al, I'm going to question you on your last statement. I don't think anybody can ever breeze by Evert Lloyd. She's just not that kind of a player that would ever give you the feeling that you're on a roll, because you know that she plays every point to the max.
It's merely a statement of where we are now.
Okay.
For the way Evonne's playing, even if she has lost a little speed, she's making up with it with quickness that doesn't seem to have dissipated at all. That first step of hers in either direction is something to watch. A little bit of a late call again. Chris doing a little sweat. Either that or she spilled some water on her during the changeover.
That's like such a bad joke. It's unbelievable. Another touch by Evonne.
Chris went for it.
What a beautifully structured ball played by Evonne. She had a drop shot in there, a lob, an overhead, and finally drew the error for a well-placed volley.
Called out.
30-40.
Mary, I heard there were going to be a lot of bugs here, like there were at Mawa where we were, but I don't see very many.
Good return by Chris. Evonne kind of makes this lackadaisical play into the net behind her serve, and she got caught there. So another break point for Evert Lloyd.
Just beyond the reach of Evonne Goolagong. And Chris Evert Lloyd takes the game. And in the first set, still Evonne Goolagong leading. And let's go back on the replay of this last point.
We'll see Chris draw Evonne up to net with this shot, come up with a very nice, sharp cross-court winner to win her the game.
In 1980, she won Wimbledon. She defeated Chris Evert Lloyd. But now, she's the mother of two, and she travels around with her husband, 2 kids, and a babysitter. How's your game, Evonne Goolagong?
I think it's just the actual playing. I know I've had enough time off during my pregnancies, injuries, whatever, to really appreciate the game more and really miss it. I've never at any stage said that I was going to retire, so I think it's basically I just love it, and I think I miss the lifestyle. I'm not really ready to stay in one place. I go crazy. So I'm ready to get back on the road again. It's just always nice to know that you've got a home to come back to every now and then.
Are you going to play a proof?
Evonne Goolagong, certainly at the start of this, not doing too badly. And in her 11-year professional career, she has won 92 singles titles. Good for $1.3 million in the bank. I guess the key thing for her to come back is to avoid the injuries, as would be for anybody. Chris Evert Lloyd serving it up.
A lot of heat on that forehand passing shot by Evert Lloyd. Really stung this one. Good approach, deep enough, but Chris was right there and cranked it down the line.
Earlier, she was shooting a lot of those wide, long. A little too much pace.
That was overplayed just a bit. But when you have a 40-love situation like that, sometimes you just do that. Give it a run.
What the heck? Chris Evert Lloyd takes the game. Games are now 4-all. Chris Evert Lloyd taking 2 in a row. Goolagong was on top 4-2. So indeed, Mary, when you jumped all over me for saying that...
You had it coming to you, Al.
I did. I'll admit it.
I think Chris has so much respect for Evonne that in those opening games where she had more unforced errors than Evonne, it was perhaps due to nerves. I think she went into this match really knowing she had an opponent to play against. Just out. Evonne put the backspin to it. Chris prides herself on being able to read her opponent's shots and move to the ball quickly, but she says of Evonne that she just gets a feeling until the very last second, Evonne doesn't even know where she's going to hit it. So she surprises Chris like she did just there, Al. It's so hard to read Evonne because she's so clever and she can hold on to her shot till the very last second. And she's very confusing to play against. And I think that gives Chris a lot of reason to think. Nice shot. That last point again. Evonne moves in and Chris will just roll it by her across court. Mirror of that last shot. And again, Evonne couldn't handle it. More break points against Goolagong's serve.
Double fault for Evonne Goolagong. Second double fault to the match, and Chris Evert Lloyd leads 5-4 in the opening set of the singles semifinal. There you see it, 5-4. This telecast is presented by authority of the USA Cable Network and is intended solely for the private non-commercial use of our audience. Any publication, reproduction, retransmission, or other use of the pictures, descriptions, and accounts of these matches without the express written consent of the USA Cable Network is strictly prohibited. Mary, let's go back and take a look at Evonne's serve. Tell me what you think of it.
It's very fluid, very graceful motion. She tosses well out in front of her. She has a real nice back arch there, and all her power is going forward. It's a classic serve, and it's a good one for serving and volleying. Evonne finished third in this event in 1980, and we're going to see the third and fourth place playoff of this tomorrow.
That was when it was known as the Clairol Crown. Evonne in 80, winner of Wimbledon. By the way, the singles final tomorrow will be 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific in the afternoon on USA Cable Network. And again, a fine crowd. It certainly looks like a sellout here at the PGA National Resort. Temporary stands constructed for this around this clay court surface. This PGA National Resort, 2,340 acres, 3 championship golf courses, and lots of tennis courts. Chris Evert Lloyd serving 5-4. She holds serve.
And we should mention that Chris, who was not serving well in the beginning games, has served 9 first serves in a row. So her game has really picked up these last couple of games. Evonne so often hits off her back foot, and you kind of, I kind of want to point the finger at her and tell her not to do that, because on the errors she does that. But she also makes so many good winners from that back foot that you can't even jump on that as a glaring error. It just seems the comfortable way for Evonne to hit her ground strokes.
Up. 30-15.
30-15. And if you want more tennis after this, we'll give you more tennis, the doubles final. Right after this, there were 2 doubles matches held yesterday. Stova and Evonne Goolagong defeating Andrea Jaeger and Kathy Horvath. Meanwhile, Rosie Casals and Wendy Turnbull defeated Kathy Rinaldi and Joanne Russell.
40-15. 40-30.
40-30. Still set point. Deuce. Evonne Goolagong has battled back. I'll tell you, those ground strokes of Chris, they're booming off her racket. They're echoing through this 4,000-seat stadium. You think her speed is lacking? Not on that point.
This is such a beautiful point by Evonne. This is a very difficult drop shot. Hit well, stretch volley winner into the open court. So after 2 set points against her, Evonne has a break point for 5-all. There it is.
Evonne Goolagong takes the game after Chris Evert Lloyd had 2 set points. And now we are 5-all in the opening set.
Really some outstanding ground stroke rallies, and at this time everybody watching the set tonight, we're gonna have a lesson in clay court tennis. We have 2 professionals teaching us, Chris Evert Lloyd and Evonne Goolagong. And now I know you're always working on your game, so you listen to. Watch when these two get in these long exchanges. You can actually hear them sliding into their shots, especially on the wide ones. They know how to slide on clay. And you'll be watching, as it's 15-love, you'll be watching they slide either to break for the ball or they'll slide into the shot as they hit it. It's just a wonderful usage that both of these two understand this surface so well. So listen, you'll hear a slide before the hit. Another stab volley winner by Evonne.
She is stretching all over the court and saving herself quite often with some super shots. The thing I love about the clay is it leaves evidence. Five all. Have a look again at Evonne Goolagong's second serve. Not a bad little passing shot, but indicative of the way these two have been playing.
Get the feeling Chris is getting a little bit more confident with her passing shots because she's drawing Evonne in. And look at that nice slide by Evonne, but the shot was not good enough. Chris won it on the next shot. Back live, it's 30-15. Very close
Called
ball.
out.
30 all.
Chris is still staring at it. It's that same shot that Evonne has used effectively a couple times in this match, but it was called wide. So it's 30 all.
Once again, we're live. This is the Citizen Cup from Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. Singles finals tomorrow. Games are 5 all.
On her racket, Evert Lloyd forced to stretch. And as you see again, Chris is well positioned to hit this next volley here, but is just short of the shot. So Evonne's got a game point for 6-5.
Goolagong with the advantage. Chris has had 2 straight encounters with the net. Evonne will be in doubles as well right after this. So if nothing else, we will test her stamina tonight. Back at deuce.
That one well out. Once again, Evonne off her back foot. Chris has a break point.
Beautiful passing shot by Evonne Goolagong.
Part of that last point again. Chris comes in well, but here she just says, oh yeah. She knew Evonne had it. Evonne came up off that backhand just a little early, pulled up on it, giving Chris another chance for the game. Oh! Evonne serving below 50%.
psychological warfare going on out there. We're at deuce for the 5th time.
Watch how Evonne pulls Chris into net and then shoots the ball behind her, hitting it right where Chris used to be. Nicely played point. Another deuce. Sort of a curious strategy by Evonne. She was well beyond behind the baseline on that one. She tried to just touch it over.
Probably saying to herself, gee, make her earn it, don't give it to her. Break point again for Chris Evert Lloyd. We are now at deuce for the 6th time, and I am told by Mark Stolberger, the keeper of trivial records, such as the one I'm about to relate to you, that this is the tie for most deuces ever on a USA Network tennis telecast. What that means, I have no idea. No big implications, just we're going to set yet another record. Something you can tell your kids. Your TV said it was there when it happened.